Okay, Stranger Things Season 4, Volume 1. Let's talk about it. First, before I start, let me just say there are going to be huge, major spoilers for all of the seasons, but especially Season 4. So if you haven't seen Season 4 yet, I implore you, please go watch it before you finish this video. Don't let me ruin it for you. So it's been a hot minute since Season 3 of Stranger Things came out. It's been so long that I was living in a different state the last time I watched the show, so I've been waiting a long time for this. And if you know me, you know that Stranger Things holds a special spot in my heart. I loved Season 1 so much that one of the short films I had to make for a class in college was inspired by it. So basically, I'm always excited when I know Stranger Things is coming back. I loved Season 1. I like Season 2, even though it has the Lost Sister episode, and I will admit, I didn't hate that one as much as a lot of other people. Even though I will admit it's an aberration and very different in tone and a departure for that season. It's not good. I just didn't hate it as much as everyone. And Season 3, I enjoyed. I had fun with, but it was kind of silly, happy fun times. And I like Stranger Things better when it gets a little dark and serious. Like when we thought Will Byers was dead in Season 1. Like that was like the craziest moment. Heroes is playing. I was sobbing. I was in the fetal position on the floor. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, Season 4, I was hoping they'd go back to a little bit of a darker tone, and they kind of did, for the most part. They released the first 7 episodes as Volume 1, and then we have to wait until July for the next volume. And let me just say that Volume 1 is a lot. Literally. Like, the run times are ridiculous. They're crazy. In most other seasons, you get maybe one episode that's over an hour, and the rest are around 50, 55 minutes. This one, the shortest one, was like an hour and 3 minutes. It was crazy. The longest one's an hour 40, which at that point you wonder, how do you not just break it up into 2 episodes? But you know, I'm all for breaking the mold and not having to conform to a standardized runtime. However, I do think that some of these episodes don't really deserve that long of a runtime. Some of them do, a lot don't. But I am getting ahead of myself, so let's go back to the beginning. Episodes 1 and 2 of Season 4 are not great, I'm gonna be honest. There's a lot of weird high school drama stuff, and we're introducing more new characters, and the whole vibe felt off. One of the things that Stranger Things has struggled under is having too many characters now, and I think that's why the run times are so long. They got too many characters, too many storylines to try to fit in, and now we're adding new characters. And the problem with some of them is that some of them are added just to be cannon fodder for this season's villain. They're there just to die, and you're like, okay. And even the ones that stick around, you're like, okay, we're adding another person. For example, Eddie. Eddie is a fine character. I don't really have a problem with Eddie, but we just keep adding characters to our main cast. Like, we added Robin last season, and I like Robin. But this season, she kind of just becomes the quippy sidekick who kind of just pals around because we're adding too many people, so some people don't really have a lot to do. And I'm afraid down the road that if they just keep adding more people to the group, that this is going to continue happening. And let me just say, I don't like the basketball team, most of the characters from that. Just get rid of them. I wouldn't really care. I know that they're kind of integral to part of the plot, but In terms of plotline setup, there are some I like and some I don't. The Hopper, Murray, Joyce storyline with Russia, throw that in the garbage. It's not interesting, it's spinning its wheels most of the time. I feel part of the problem that I have with this season is they wrote themselves into a corner at the end of Season 3, and now they're trying to write themselves out of it, and it's taking forever. Hopper being in Russia and having to get him back is something they did set up, but I don't like it. I'd rather just get him back to Hawkins and have him be the Hop I know and love. The same thing kind of goes for Elle. The fact that they had her lose her powers, it's just... I'd rather her have her powers. Her just being bullied at school is not interesting. I'm not here for that. I want her to be the 11 we know. And she gets there eventually. It just, once again, takes way longer than I think is warranted. This season is clearly inspired a lot by A Nightmare on Elm Street, which I'm all for. I'm a fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. I also really appreciate that they got Robert Englund to make an appearance this season, because he played Freddy Krueger, and I love that as a little tip of the cap. I knew months before this came out that he was in it, because they had released it, so it wasn't really a surprise. I still like seeing him, especially since during his scene, it was kind of also a Silence of the Lambs homage. And you know I love that. That's like one of my favorite movies. So I do appreciate that. I like that when Chrissy died, she was on the ceiling, like A Nightmare on Elm Street. That's a good little touch. But they get a little too heavy-handed. It almost reaches the point that it becomes too much like A Nightmare on Elm Street. For example, Vecna, the villain this season. He is basically Freddy Krueger. He is getting inside people's heads, they're dreaming. The part that I don't understand is why he has one big hand. There's no reason for that story-wise. They just wanted to make him look more like Freddy Krueger in silhouette. And that's where I'm getting to the point where it's a little too much. There's no reason for that story-wise. It's just, let's make it A Nightmare on Elm Street. In the video store, there's a poster of Freddy Krueger, and I was like, okay, that's a little much. We already know that it's A Nightmare on Elm Street. But then at one point, I think Dustin literally says it's like Freddy Krueger. You don't have to spoon feed me that. I know it's A Nightmare on Elm Street. You don't have to straight up say it to the camera, essentially. Okay, so I said episodes 1 and 2 are off to a little bit of a rocky start. I think episode 3 starts to pick it up a little bit. And then episode 4, Dear Billy, is one of the best, if not the best, of like the entire show. They understand that Max is the most interesting character. Her dealing with the trauma of watching her brother die last season and going through all that and being tortured by this new villain because of it. I really like that, and this episode focused a lot on that. And her showdown with Vecna in his little world, incredible. I really love their use of Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush, and I am embarrassed to say that before I watched this show, I actually didn't know what that song was. And I told my sister that, and her answer to me was a resounding fuck you, which is warranted because that song goes hard and it was used amazingly in the show, so that's on me. I also love that they used a Kate Bush song for this season as being like an important part of it, because in A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, the main character has a poster of Kate Bush in his room, so I like to think that that was another little nod to that. And I like subtle ones like that. Also in episode 4, that one shot in the house in California when the shootout happens, that was amazing. Especially since I was starting to really get a little bored and starting to nod off when it came to the California storyline. So when that shootout happened, I was like, all right, you're reeling me back in. They kind of reeled me back out again later on in the season, but I'll get to that. Also, I wanted to say that I legitimately thought they were going to kill Max in episode 4, which I think would have been a really impactful moment, but I'm glad they didn't, because she is the most interesting character, and the way they did it, just thinking about the Kate Bush song playing when she's running gives me goosebumps. It's really good. It's really good. And then after the powerhouse that was episode 4, we get to episode 5, which starts to lose me again a little bit. It is hard to keep that level that they established in episode 4, but it dips again, and I find myself drifting. Both episodes 5 and 6, there are storylines I like and I don't, like I said. I like the group in Hawkins, our main group, getting together, trying to figure it out, finding the gateways, going to the Upside Down. I enjoy all that. Eleven's storyline, some of it I like and some of it I don't. I appreciate us going back and seeing what happened to her, but I felt like they took a really long time getting there. Like a really long time. I felt like that could have been condensed, or we get rid of the Russia line at all. I didn't like any of the stuff in Russia. We could have gotten rid of that, and I would have been perfectly happy. And like I said, the California stuff, Argyle, the new character, I'm not into him. That actor was in American Vandal as one of the Wayback Boys, and that's all I can see him as, and he's essentially that exact same character in this. And Jonathan is kind of just turned into another stoner, and he has almost nothing to do all season. They kind of lost me on that one a little bit, especially when they go to see Susie. I don't like Susie, And I think that's just because I'm holding a grudge. Because in season 3, the never-ending story song part is the worst thing that Stranger Things has ever done. I'm just gonna say it. I hate that part, and now every time I see her, that's all I think of. Plus, the whole part with all the kids in her house, it just feels so different in tone than what I'm looking for. Like, we're shifting back and forth from some pretty serious things to that. I don't know. Also, just as a side note, I wish they would stop making Will look like a mushroom. And I wish he had more to do also, because all he's done is kind of mope around and tag along and then hide a painting that will reveal something about him. I don't know. And then we get to episode 7, which I know, like, people really love. I like parts of it and I don't like parts of it. I do like the reveal at the end. The last 20 minutes is really good. I feel a little bit silly for not seeing it coming earlier. Like, I should have clued in on it. I did find something off about the orderly, but I thought it was just because I recognized him from Twilight, and I was like, you're a weirdo. I do enjoy that they tied together the storylines of Victor Creel and Eleven and Vecna so that it's more of a cohesive story. I really appreciate that. But once again in that episode, we have more Russia stuff. And I will admit, this Russia stuff is more interesting because they're fighting a Demogorgon. But once again, I don't really care. Now, to dig into Vecna, the character itself, for a minute, I have questions about how he operates and why he's only doing it now. Because as we saw, well, he's one, right? I'm just going to call him one. He was sent in there years ago when Eleven sent him in there, and he's just now starting to do this to people. Why? Also, I just wanted to say that when he got flung in there, that was one part where I was like, this looks a little shoddy. It's a little cheesy. One, why is the lightning striking him as he's going through? And two, why does that make him look like Anakin from Revenge of the Sith? I also have some logic questions. Like, if he was number 1, why was he dressed and working basically as an orderly the whole time? Like, wouldn't they want to keep him separate? Or even if he was there to help train the kids, why is he dressed like all the other orderlies? It's only so that there can be a reveal at the end, I feel. There are just little things like that throughout the season that pop up occasionally where I go, wait, but why did that happen like that? And it's kind of sometimes just for plot convenience, which I can forgive to a certain extent, but I'm not gonna forget it. One of the other things that didn't make sense logically to me was Victor Creel gouging his eyes out. I mean, it makes it look really cool when they do the makeup when he's old, but he said he tried to end it by doing that, which doesn't really make sense because you know that that's not going to kill you. It's just going to blind you. So it's just like, that doesn't make sense. It's just so that he can look that way. Things like that, just small things, but they just don't make logical sense to me. I also don't super like that they're clearly trying to make Nancy and Steve a thing again. I kind of liked that it was like, well, you lost your chance because you sucked, buddy, in season 1, but now that you're better, you live and you learn and you move on. I like that they had just stayed friends. So now that it's kind of gravitating back towards them being a couple, it's feeling a little bit cheeseball, and I don't know. I'd rather them just be platonic and comfortable with that. I will say, I started enjoying the season a lot more after episode 4. The first few I was like, I don't know, because it's felt like Stranger Things has been a little bit of diminishing returns over the years. Because like I said, the first one I absolutely loved. I watched it like the weekend it came out on Netflix because I saw the trailer and I was like, that looks like Steven Spielberg directed a Stephen King story, and it wasn't really wrong. And then season 2 had Will Byers freaking out like he was possessed, and that was awesome, but I still didn't like it quite as much as season 1. And then season 3 I liked even less, so I was afraid that just over time it was just going to get less and less interesting. However, I do like some of the darker things they've done so far this season, and I'm gonna wait to see what they do in part 2 before I give it like a final rating and rank it amongst the other seasons. Because if they really hit home and they knock it out of the park with the last episodes of this season, then I definitely will like it more than season 3. But right now, I think it's sitting between 2 and 3 as my 3rd favorite season. But I'll just have to wait and find out when the rest come out in July. Also, as a closing note, is it bad that I liked it more when I thought Eleven killed all those children? I kind of liked the concept that she really is capable of doing some really messed up things because of what's happened to her, but she's gotten better now. And now it's just like, oh no, she was good the whole time. And like, that's fine, and that probably fits Stranger Things better. But when I thought we were going like really dark, I kind of liked that. And that's kind of all I have to say on the matter. I'll always watch Stranger Things when it comes out. I have mixed feelings on Season 4, Volume 1. I wouldn't say I hate it. I wouldn't say I love it. It's just kind of right in the middle, and we'll see where it goes from here. Alright, if you watched to this point, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and check back from our video soon.